Untitled Sports Central, we go over a college football game preview and prediction on a big matchup coming up here in the SEC in Week 6 of this 2021 college football season, and it'll be over the Alabama Crimson Tide and the Texas A&M Aggies. Huge matchup for each of these teams heading into Week 6. Alabama is currently the top-ranked team in the nation, and rightfully so. I mean, with Bryce Young and that offense, that is going to be a brutal team to beat down the stretch. As for Texas A&M, this team has lost 2 straight games. They dropped one to Arkansas a couple of weeks ago, and then they lost to Mississippi State last week. So Texas A&M is now, this team was in the top 10 for the first few weeks of the season, but Texas A&M is now completely out of the rankings. So Texas A&M needs a big momentum shift here, and they could get that with a big upset win over Alabama. So that being said, we'll be over a full game preview and prediction on this matchup here today, starting out with your team trends. Alabama last week beat Ole Miss 42-21, solid win for the Crimson Tide. Ole Miss, that is a very talented football team. And, offensively, especially for Ole Miss, they have got a lot of weapons like Matt Corral. He's outstanding quarterback. So that was a good win for Alabama. Winning it by 3 touchdowns was certainly a good win. And Alabama is 5-0 heading into this matchup, still undefeated. Texas A&M lost to Mississippi State 22-26. That is just a bad loss. For Texas A&M, this is a team who's got night and day more talent than Mississippi State. So, you got to win those games like that. So, Texas A&M, that was a tough loss, and I think that Texas A&M is still a team that has potential to get to a good bowl game. But, it's going to be tough to get to a good bowl game with if they keep losing like they are right now. Texas A&M definitely has to shift it around. But that's the thing about Texas A&M is this team is just pretty young this season. Like last year, they were pretty experienced. Kellen Mond obviously was a quarterback for Texas A&M for a long time. So that's kind of had definitely a change. Obviously, when you have a quarterback for several years leaving the program, it's gonna be different the next year. And for Texas A&M here, Zach Calzada and Haynes King, of course, have been the 2 quarterbacks, and it's a tough situation right now for Texas A&M. But this team still has a tremendous amount of talent, and I think they've got plenty of potential to still get to a good bowl game. But they got to turn things around for sure. You can't be losing to Mississippi State. Game will be on Saturday, October 9th, College Station, Texas. So the Aggies do have the home field in this matchup, so that'll be a big advantage for them. And it's at 7 p.m. Central Time. So you got a night game, which is definitely beneficial for Texas A&M, having the game at home. Spread currently says Alabama by 17.5. So Crimson Tide, not surprising that they are heavily favored in this matchup. FPI is also going with them, 85.8%. So the Crimson Tide are heavily favored in this matchup. Series history, Alabama leads at 11-2. They've got an 8-game winning streak. Crimson Tide have won this game since 2012. That was the last time the Aggies were able to knock off Alabama, was in 2012. So, 8 straight game wins here for Alabama in this series between the Crimson Tide and the Aggies. Here's your stat comparison for this matchup. Alabama's got 45 points per game, 18 points allowed, 299 pass yards a game, 163 rush yards, and then for yards allowed, 177 passing, and then 112 rushing. So, all around, Alabama's stats are outstanding. Offensively, this team is great. Bryce Young averaging 300 pass yards a game, and even defensively, they've been very good as well. Texas A&M, 23 points per game, 12 points allowed, 208 passing yards a game, 167 rushing yards, and then for yards allowed, 177 passing, and then 142 on the rushing end. Recent matchups for each of these teams, Alabama, they beat Ole Miss, and they've got 3 quality wins on their schedule already. They beat Ole Miss by 3 touchdowns, beat Florida. They're ranked 11th at the time, and they beat Miami, which Miami's been struggling. That's been a tough season so far for Miami. I expected the Hurricanes to be a top 15 team this season, and they're not even close to the top 25 right now. So, it was very good looking back on it that Alabama blew out Miami, because, that Miami football team is not looking too good right now. But overall, not a bad season so far for Alabama. For Texas A&M, they really don't have a quality win so far this season. Like, they beat Kent State 41-10. They've got a good offense. New Mexico 34-0, beat Colorado by 3, but Buffaloes aren't a very good football team. And then that came after before they lost to Arkansas and Mississippi State there. So, it's been kind of a tough start to the season for Texas A&M. Once again, as I said before, this team still has got plenty of potential, and I think there's plenty of talent here for them to make it to a pretty good bowl game. But some key points for this one, obviously you got Alabama, who's 5-0, Bryce Young having an outstanding season. He's arguably the best quarterback in the SEC right now. I'd say you got Matt Corral and Bryce Young Those are your two top quarterbacks currently in the SEC. JT Nails is good, but he's injured right now, and Stetson Bennett he's shown potential as well. But yeah, Bryce Young, definitely one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC. They've got 3 quality wins in 5 weeks. And overall, this Alabama team is just a brutal team to beat. Like, once again, I've said this many times in the past couple of years, until Nick Saban retires, this Alabama team is the dynasty of college football. For Texas A&M, they're on a 2-game skid, obviously with their losses to Mississippi State and then Arkansas. And they've shown potential, but this Texas A&M team is not a top 10 team. This is also a very young football team. So, in the future, we could see some a great season, maybe even next year when they got their quarterbacks more experienced. But right now, it's just been a tough go at it for the Aggies. But yeah, for this game, they'll have to start fast and win the turnover margin without a doubt if they want to win this game. You cannot be causing turnovers. That's the thing is you can't commit turnovers, or else you're going to be in a bad situation, especially when you're playing a very talented Alabama football team. But let's get the prediction. With that being said, Alabama and Texas A&M. Not surprising, I'm going with the Crimson Tide here. Some people may predict a crazy upset here and say Texas A&M is going to come out of nowhere and get a huge win, but especially after the past couple of weeks, I just don't see it happening. Texas A&M does have it at home in a night game, so potentially that could give them. We've seen some crazy things in college football happen with home teams at night, but Alabama, I got to give them the win here, 35-17. I wouldn't be surprised if it was an even bigger win for Alabama. Potentially, if the Crimson Tide were to put up 40-50 points, I wouldn't be too surprised. So this is kind of I'd say a good scenario for Texas A&M is if they can keep it within 20 points. 35-17 is my predicted final score here, 75% probability towards Alabama. You could probably increase that to 80%, honestly. I'm pretty confident that the Crimson Tide win this game. But yeah, over-under is 51.5. I'm taking the over here in this matchup just slightly, but I am pretty confident that this game will go over the 51.5. Alabama's offense, once again, I wouldn't be too surprised to see them put up 40-50 points in this matchup. So, if they do that, and even if Texas A&M scores 10-20 points, that already puts you on the over. So if you're into betting, you could probably be confident in betting the over this week for this matchup. But that being said, let me know your thoughts and comments below on this matchup, and I appreciate you guys all watching. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. I'll see you later.